In the stillness of night, you hear it just a whisper at first. It travels like a breeze through the forgotten corners of the earth. The sound of something old, something lost, but never truly gone. It calls your name, or perhaps not. You can't be sure. It's somewhere in the back of your mind. You know that it is a summons. It's a voice from an age long past, a time when the world was ruled by gods you have never known, gods you've never dared to ask about, gods whose names should have never slipped from memory. The god's name hovers on the edges of your thoughts. Xipe Totec. Xipe Totec. The name reverberates like an echo from the depths, lingering just out of reach, like a dream you can almost remember, but never fully grasp. It is a name born of blood, of ancient rituals, of sacrifice and rebirth. You feel the air grow heavy as it settles upon your senses, thick with the promise of forgotten knowledge. The Flayed God, some call him, a deity bound to the very cycle of life and death, whose domain is neither holy life nor holy death, but the thin, fragile line between them. A God who does not ask for worship, but for surrender to the endless cycle of transformation. But who was Xipe Totec, really? The history is fractured, scattered like dust in the wind. The Aztecs, mighty and complex, claimed him as their own, their god of agriculture, renewal, spring, and of sacrifice. They saw in him the painful but necessary process of a corn kernel shedding its outer husk to germinate, or a snake shedding its skin to grow. In the rituals dedicated to Xipe Totec, life would be given, not to end, but to begin again. His power was said to lie not in the promise of eternal life, but in the cyclical nature of existence, death as the necessary gateway to new beginnings. It was not a death without meaning, but a death that led to rebirth. As you listened to the whisper, you couldn't help but wonder about this God who ruled over such a paradox, the God who reveled in the transformation of flesh, whose followers donned the flayed skins of sacrificial victims, who saw the destruction of one life as essential to the creation of something greater. Was this a God of brutal necessity, a symbol of nature's harsh truths, or something far more terrifying? Xipe Totec, the name that carries so much weight, yet it is only half of what you must understand. The other half, the darker half, is what lies beyond this name, what was lost, forgotten, and erased in the annals of time. The truth, as it so often does, slips between your fingers, but it continues to call, drawing you closer. You hear it again, clearer now, a voice not loud but insistent, vibrating through the space around you. It beckons you to delve deeper, to peer into the shadows of the past, to explore the divine rituals that are now nothing more than whispered legends. The idea of Xipe Totec draws you in, and you know instinctively that the journey ahead will lead to a place where gods are not merely worshipped, they are transformed, flayed, and reborn. The whispers cease for a moment, leaving only a lingering presence. This is no ordinary myth. There is something darker here, something that resists the passage of time. The god is not forgotten, not gone, but waiting. It's always waiting. And as the silence falls upon you, one final whisper rings out. It is not an invitation, nor a question. It is a command. Now, let's get started with today's story. In certain corners of the world, in places even the ancients forgot, the line between life and death isn't just thin. It's non-existent. You're standing on the threshold of one such place now. We're in the land of the Tlaxcala, a resilient people nestled between the mighty Aztec Empire and the dense jungles beyond. Here the old gods were worshipped in ways that modern minds can barely comprehend. The rituals performed weren't the grand public spectacles of Tenochtitlan's temples. No, they were something far more personal, more intimate, and arguably more terrifying. At the heart of this forgotten land stood a temple to Xipe Totec, our Lord the Flayed One, a silent witness to both the sacred and the horrifying. The air would have been thick with the sense of copal incense and fresh blood, offerings to a god who would forever change those who dared to enter his domain. The people of Tlaxcala would gather their hearts a chaotic mix of devotion and primal fear, because they weren't offering simple trinkets or animals. They were offering themselves. The central ritual of Xipe Totec was known as Tlaxopialistli, the flaying of men. It was an act so profound, so visceral, that it involved the complete stripping away of a person's skin. But this wasn't punishment or a simple sacrifice. For them, It was a sacred transformation. The flayed skin wasn't discarded. It was worn by a priest or another devotee as a second skin. A golden yellow garment symbolizing renewal, agriculture, and the shedding of the old to make way for the new, much like a maize seed shedding its husk to sprout. As grotesque as it sounds, the ritual was believed to mirror the god's own cycle of suffering and rebirth, creating a direct link between the earthly and the divine. To be chosen for this was considered a great honor. For the people of Tlaxcala, being flayed was a form of rebirth. It was a spiritual act connecting the individual directly to Xipe Totec's essence. The pain would have been unimaginable, but the promise of divine favor, spiritual transcendence, was believed to be far greater. The one who wore this second skin was said to walk in the footsteps of the god himself. There's an unsettling beauty in this ritual, isn't there? The idea that to become closer to the divine, one must shed their earthly form, their old self, and literally wear the symbol of their god's power. The flesh wasn't just removed, it was transmuted. The skin became a garment of godly grace, imbued with the very essence of Xipe Totec. It was an act of unification with the divine. But a darker question lingers within this sacred act. Xipe Totec represented the eternal cycle of destruction and renewal, a cycle from which nothing can escape. So, while his followers believed they were achieving spiritual transcendence, were they actually being trapped in his divine loop? To wear the skin of the god was to embrace his eternal cycle, to become part of his endless transformation. Caught in the same dance of life, death, and rebirth? Was this ritual truly an act of spiritual ascension? Or was it a trap, a form of spiritual entrapment binding the soul to the god's will forever? As we stand at the edge of this forgotten world, you can't help but wonder, is this divine favor or something far more sinister? A curse wrapped in the guise of holiness? The whispers of the ritual linger. The questions are as deep as these ancient temples and as elusive as the god himself. But the rite remains, a haunting melody woven into the fabric of history, a sacred act that reveals both the divine, and the damned. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, get that notification bell for more explorations into the world's forgotten corners. See you next time. The air grows thick around you, heavy with the dust of forgotten chambers. Listen closely. Can you hear it? The whispers of those who dared to wear the flayed skin of Xipe Totec, our Lord, the Flayed One. Imagine the texture of it, the raw, cooling skin of another clinging to your own. A second skin, a gruesome transformation, not just of the body, but of the very spirit. To wear the skin was to step into the god's essence, to shed your mortal coil and become something both sacred and grotesque. It was an act of rebirth, a symbol of the earth shedding its old dead covering to make way for new life. But as you linger in this thought, a chilling understanding emerges. It was never truly the wearer who held the power, it was the skin itself. When a person was chosen for sacrifice, their skin was meticulously removed, not just as a symbol, but as a divine offering. That flesh peeled away from the body still held the imprint of its previous life, the echo of its soul. That asterisk was the power. It wasn't the priest wearing the skin, but the soul trapped within it that the god desired. The act of wearing this skin wasn't merely symbolic. It was an act of becoming a vessel. Those who donned the flayed skins were thought to inherit a fragment of Xipe Totec's power. And this wasn't a clean divine power, as you might imagine. It was corrupted, twisted, tied to the very cycle of suffering and rebirth that defined the god. To wear the skin was to be bound to his eternal loop, where life and death chase each other in an endless, horrifying dance. In this loop, there was no true escape, only the illusion of freedom, the false promise of transcendence. The god's power flowed through the skin, yes, but it demanded a terrible price. You could never escape it. The skin would not let you. So, what was this power? Kings, priests, and elite warriors adorned themselves with the god's skin, believing it gave them fearlessness in battle, divine wisdom, and favor in the eyes of the people. But these gifts were fleeting. Each time the skin was worn, each time it was passed to another, the connection to the divine grew weaker, more distorted. What began as a holy symbol of rebirth became a tether to something much darker. A path to transformation became a prison. Those who wore the skin felt its weight, not just physically, but spiritually. It was alive with an energy that whispered in their ears, urging them to embrace their power, to do whatever was necessary to maintain their divine status. The more they wore it, the more they were consumed. It's said that in time, they began to lose their own identity. The gods will replace their own. They were no longer the wearer, but a mere extension of the gods' power, trapped in a cycle they could not break. Perhaps the truth of Xipe Totec is not as a god of renewal, but something far more insidious, a god who consumes those who seek his power, is making them part of his endless, unbreakable cycle. The skin that once symbolized rebirth became a constant, gruesome reminder of the price of immortality. As you ponder this, you realize the full extent of the goddess' power is not in his ability to give life, but in his ability to take it away, to strip the soul and leave only a hollow shell. To wear the skin was to forfeit your humanity for the god's fleeting grace. In that exchange, there was no return, no true resurrection. The skin was a vessel, yes, but it was also a curse. It's in seeking to wear the skin of the god, you weren't becoming one with him. You were becoming his prisoner. The power it gave was not freedom. It was the power to be forever bound. The skin was not a gift, it was a sentence. And still, the whispers grow louder. They speak not only of Xipe Totec, but of the very nature of power itself. What compels us to seek the power of gods, even when it costs our very soul? As the skin of Xipe Totec calls to you from across the centuries, you can almost feel its weight on your own shoulders, heavy, pressing, and inescapable. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the shadows of history. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories that lie hidden in the past. See you next time. The sound of a single, resonant drum beat, followed by a low, rhythmic pulse. Can you feel that? A rhythm that seems to pulse from the very earth beneath you. It's an ancient sound, carried on the breath of centuries, pulling you toward the dark corners of history. We're traveling back to the heart of the Aztec world, a place where gods and men walked together, and sacrifice was the ultimate offering to the divine. To understand the Aztec people, you must first understand their view of sacrifice. It wasn't about death for death's sake. It was a bridge to the gods, a way to maintain cosmic balance in a universe teetering on the edge of chaos. Life and death weren't opposites. They were two sides of the same coin, locked in a perpetual dance of transformation. And at the center of this cycle stood a powerful, terrifying deity, Xipe Totec, our lord, the Flayed One, the god of spring, agriculture, and rebirth. Most sacred and visually striking of his rituals was the offering of human skin. This wasn't just a physical act, it was deeply spiritual. The Aztecs believed the skin was the outermost layer of the soul. To remove it was to peel back the mortal coil and reveal the divine essence within. The flayed body became a pure vessel, and the priest who wore the skin became a living embodiment of the god, a vessel for his power of renewal. This practice was most prominent among the Tlaxcalans, but similar rites existed across Mesoamerica. What made Xipe Totec unique was his demand. He didn't just want blood, he demanded flesh itself. The flaying was a profound spiritual transformation, forcing participants to confront their own mortality, to experience the power of rebirth. The person wearing the flayed skin wasn't just in costume, they were believed to be fused with the god's essence, bound by the sacred ritual. But what was the true cost? For those who participated, the ritual offered a glimpse into the divine, an experience beyond mortal understanding. But that understanding came with a heavy price. It was believed that with each sacrifice, the soul of the participant was marked, left to wander in a limbo between life and death, forever altered by their brush with the god. So why do it? The Aztecs believed the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world. Human sacrifice was how they repaid that divine debt, maintaining the delicate balance of the cosmos. Without these offerings, they believed the sun would cease to rise. The rains would fail, and life itself would fade into nothingness. Sacrifice wasn't just a choice. It was a dark necessity to ensure the world's survival. The ritual of Xipe Totec was a potent symbol of this cosmic cycle. As the flayed lord, he embodied the endless loop of death and rebirth. When his followers gave up their skin, they weren't just offering a part of themselves. They were giving the god a fragment of their soul, binding their existence to his eternal cycle of destruction and creation. The wearer of the skin wasn't just transformed. They became an extension of the divine, caught in that eternal loop. Was this all to maintain cosmic balance? Or was it a powerful tool for social control? Did the act of flaying bring true spiritual renewal? Or was it a way for a demanding god to claim more and more souls? The full answers are buried with the ancient priests and the sacred texts. But one thing is clear. The act of sacrifice was an act of surrender. The individual became a part of a greater, unending process. As the drums grow louder in your mind, you can almost feel the pull of that ancient power, the weight of the offering, and the inevitability of the cycle. You are no longer just an observer, but a participant in a story where the lines between life and death, sacrifice and renewal, are forever blurred. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this exploration of history fascinating, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. See you next time. The whispers are growing urgent now. The shadows are getting thicker, and the pull of the ancient god is getting stronger. You feel it in your chest, a pressure, an overwhelming weight that drags you deeper into the myth. What began as a simple call has transformed into a compulsion, an inevitable descent into something ancient and terrifying. As you follow this path, you're drawn toward a chilling realization. Xipe Totec was never simply a god of rebirth. He was the god of a perpetual, consuming madness, a madness tied to the very nature of transformation itself. For the Flayed One, rebirth wasn't a peaceful renewal, not a gentle shedding of an old skin. It was a violent act, a tearing of flesh, a disruption of the soul's very fabric. The transformation wasn't graceful. It was harrowing, a fracturing of the self that could never be undone. Xipe Totec demanded the surrender of the body. But it wasn't just the body he wanted. He demanded the surrender of the mind, the spirit, and ultimately the soul. Those who underwent the ritual of flaying weren't just reborn in some spiritual sense. No, they were remade, torn apart, and stitched back together in a way that left a permanent, jagged mark on their existence. You can almost feel the pain of it, can't you? How the very act of being flayed would disrupt the essence of who you are. How it would bend you, twist you, and finally consume you. The skin, once worn so proudly, would become a suffocating burden, a layer that refused to let go, even as it became a part of the person it had transformed. In the rituals of Xipe Totec, rebirth wasn't an elevation toward divine enlightenment. It was a descent, a spiral that led deeper into the madness of transformation, where the individual no longer recognized themselves. The god of rebirth became the god of dissolution, to where the skin of the god was to risk your very sanity. You would no longer be yourself, but a reflection of the god's endless torment. And what was the nature of this torment? It was the ceaseless hunger to break down the boundaries between life and death, flesh and spirit, to transcend what was mortal and become something far more ancient and far more terrifying. Xipe Totec's rebirth wasn't one of hope, but of despair, an endless cycle that could never be broken. This madness, however, wasn't a punishment. It was a necessary part of the transformation. In the world of Xipe Totec, to transcend was to experience the pain of endless destruction. It was the price that had to be paid for renewal, for the chance to wear the god's skin and step into his power. And it was a price that many paid without ever truly understanding what they had sacrificed. In time, those who wore the skin of Xipe Totec began to lose themselves. They saw the world differently, warped, distorted, like a fever dream that could never be escaped. They began to feel the god's hunger gnawing at their own minds. The line between the divine and the mortal blurred until it was impossible to tell where the god ended and the person began. This was the true cost of rebirth. Not a new life, but the dissolution of identity itself. The more one became the god, the less they were themselves. But a deeper question haunted those who followed this path. Was Xipe Totec's madness his own? Or was it the madness of all who sought him? Was the god simply a reflection of the eternal cycle he had created? The closer you get to the truth, the more it slips away. The madness of rebirth isn't something that can be understood, something that must be experienced. To look upon it is to become it. To listen to its whispers is to be consumed by them. You feel it now, don't you? The weight of it pressing down on you. The lure of the god's madness, the pull of the endless cycle. It's no longer a story you are hearing, but a reality you are living in. Reality where rebirth is not a gift, but a curse. And yet, even as the madness threatens to consume you, you can't help but wonder, is it truly madness? Or is it something far older, far deeper, something that exists beyond our comprehension, waiting for those who dare to step into the unknown? The answer, as always, is elusive. As the darkness deepens, you find yourself no longer questioning the madness, but embracing it. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the shadows. If you want to explore more of the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We have many more stories to tell. Do you ever feel it? The weight of a long-forgotten truth? A story lost to time? There was an age when gods didn't just whisper on the wind. They spoke directly to their people through sacred texts. Their teachings, their very essence, were inscribed in the words of the ancients. For the followers of the Aztec god, Xipe Totec, the Flayed Lord, one such text held all the answers. The Scroll of Rebirth. This wasn't just another holy book. The scroll was rumored to contain the deepest secrets of Xipe Totec's power, not just the rituals of sacrifice and transformation, but the very source of his eternal cycle of death and renewal. But just as quickly as it appeared in legend, it vanished. The scroll is gone, lost to the sands of time, as if it were never more than a dream. Some say it was buried with the last high priests, its holy words fading into oblivion. Others whispered that it was destroyed, its secrets deemed too dangerous for this world. Yet, a quiet hope lingers, belief that the scroll still exists, hidden in some forgotten corner of the earth, waiting for someone braver, perhaps foolish enough to seek it. What truths could it possibly hold? What could a written text reveal that the bloody, skin-wearing rituals could not? Was there a deeper understanding of the god's nature, a secret that could unravel the very fabric of his divine power? Or was the scroll just a myth, a clever story created by priests to keep their people in line, forever bound to the god's will? The few who still search for it aren't looking for simple enlightenment. No, they're after something far greater: power. The scroll's teachings were said to offer a direct connection to the god's divine essence, a shortcut to transcendence without the gruesome sacrifice. They believed that by uncovering the scroll, they could seize control of the cycle of rebirth itself, becoming its master instead of its victim. But is that really their goal? Or are they just trying to escape the very cycles Xipe Totec represents? As you follow the fractured trail of this lost knowledge, a chilling question arises. If the scroll were found, would it offer true freedom from this endless loop of suffering and renewal? Or would it simply entrap its reader, binding them even more tightly to the god's terrifying madness? The stories themselves are a tangled mess of contradictions. Some claim the scroll was written in the language of the gods, its words so potent that to read them was to experience the flaying and rebirth firsthand. Others say it was a map, a hidden path leading to the heart of the god's own domain, where one could confront Xipe Totec face to face. And then there are those who believe the scroll itself was a test, a divine filter to separate the worthy from the unworthy, its secrets only unlocking for those who had already proven their devotion through sacrifice. The more you think about it, the more you realize the truth behind the scroll is likely darker than any legend. Could the scroll be cursed? Its words so powerful they drive the reader into the same madness that claimed the priests who wore the flayed skins. Maybe its purpose was never to enlighten, but to ensure the cycle of rebirth could never be broken. A trap, designed to guarantee that anyone who sought its power would become lost in its mysteries forever. Perhaps the scroll was never meant to be found, hidden away to protect the world from the knowledge it contained. Because what would happen if the truth were revealed? What if the world learned that the god's power wasn't one of enlightenment, but of raw destruction? That true rebirth could only come through endless, unimaginable suffering. Would people still worship him, or would their faith shatter against that horrifying reality? You can feel it now, can't you? The pull of the unknown. The burning desire to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Yet there's a hesitation, a primal fear in the back of your mind. Is any knowledge worth forever altering your perception of life and death? Is it worth walking the same path as all the others who sought the god's secrets, only to be consumed by them? Or is it better to leave the scroll where it lies, buried in the dust of the past, its dangerous secrets kept safe? The search for knowledge is always a dangerous game, And in the case of Xipe Totec, the price of that knowledge may be more than any single person can bear. You stand at a crossroads, the weight of this decision pressing down on you. The path of the scroll is not just a journey into the past. It's a descent into the very heart of divine madness. And yet, a voice whispers that you must know, that you have to find the truth no matter what. The scroll remains lost, but its legacy, its temptation, endures, waiting just beneath the surface for someone to take that first fateful step into the darkness. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. If you're fascinated by the mysteries of the past, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into lost legends and forgotten lore. We'll see you next time. Imagine standing at the edge of an ancient city, its grand temples now just crumbling stones. The prayers once offered here long forgotten. This was the realm of Xipe Totec, our lord the Flayed One, a god who was once central to the spiritual life of the mighty Aztec Empire, is revered, feared, and deeply understood. His rituals, promising renewal through sacrifice, were woven into the very fabric of life in the shadow of the great Tenochtitlan. But even the mightiest can fall, and the sacred power of Xipe Totec eventually faded into myth. What happened? Over time, the Aztec pantheon grew more complex. New deities rose to prominence, powerful gods of war, radiant gods of the sun, and others demanding their own forms of devotion. They competed for the hearts of the people, and slowly, Xipe Totec was overshadowed. His domain, the profound and painful cycle of death and rebirth, became less immediate than the promises of victory in battle or a bountiful harvest. His once central role in major ceremonies began to shrink, reduced to a shadow of its former glory. So what truly caused this decline? Was it simply the shifting tides of time? Did other gods speak more directly to the changing needs of the empire? Or was it the nature of the god himself, so deeply tied to a brutal cycle of destruction and regeneration, that he couldn't adapt to a world that was moving on? The full truth is buried under centuries of history, obscured by the dust of conquest and time. As worship of Xipe Totec waned, so did the sacred rituals that defined his cult. The ceremonial flaying rites, once performed with solemn reverence to symbolize the shedding of the old to make way for the new, became less common. Sacrifices were redirected to other gods, whose demands felt more urgent and whose favors seemed more immediate. The people began to move away from the stark, bloody rituals of the past. They started seeking protection and prosperity from newer, perhaps more accessible deities. The priests who served Xipe Totec slowly vanished, their specialized knowledge forgotten, their sacred texts lost to time. The temples dedicated to him fell into ruin, reclaimed by the relentless jungle and dismantled by the empires that rose after the Aztecs fell. Xipe Totec was relegated to the realm of legend, a ghostly figure from a bygone era. But can we truly call this a fall? Or was it a necessary transformation? Perhaps the raw, primal power of Xipe Totec had simply served its purpose. The world was changing, and just as civilizations must adapt or perish, so too must their gods. And yet even as his formal worship dwindled, something strange happened. The whispers of his name never completely vanished. They lingered in forgotten places, in the margins of old scrolls, and in the stories passed down through generations. Could it be that the god's fall wasn't an end, but a shift into something else? Quiet existence on the edge of memory, waiting for those who might seek him out once more? It's almost poetic that the fate of Xipe Totec mirrors the very cycle he represents. Destruction leading not to an end, but to rebirth. In his fall, he became something new, a ghost, a shadow, a relic. But in the faint whispers of his name, in the archaeological remnants of his rituals, there's a feeling that he is never truly gone. He waits. He waits in the darkness, for those who believe that true rebirth comes not from the light, but from enduring the shadows. Standing here, you can feel it, the weight of his story. It's not just a loss, it's a profound transformation. Xipe Totec is not dead. He has simply retreated into the silence of his forgotten temples, waiting for those who still dare to listen to the old stories and call his name in the dark. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time. In the silence of ancient ruins, amid stones that have long forgotten their names, a prophecy stirs. It's an old prophecy, a whisper carried on the wind, a secret kept in the hearts of those who still look to the old gods. It speaks of Xipe Totec, the Flayed God of Rebirth, and it says he will return. Not as a man returns to his home, but as a god reborn in a time of desperate need. A time when the very fabric of our world begins to tear itself apart. To speak the name of a forgotten god, one who demands so much from his followers, is a dangerous thing. The belief persists. The Flayed God will return, and when he does, the veil between life and death will grow thin. The boundary between gods and mortals will cease to exist. The exact details are shrouded in mystery, of course. No one knows when, or how, or why. But there are signs, subtle and scattered. In distant temples once dedicated to Xipe Totec, strange rituals are being performed, echoes of ancient prayers resurfacing as if by some forgotten magic. The sacred flayed skins, once thought to be mere relics, have appeared again in the hands of those who call themselves keepers of the old ways. In the darkest corners of the world, the ritual of the flaying has begun anew. Practiced in secret, a forbidden art reborn. What could these signs mean? Is the return of Xipe Totec truly upon us? Or are these just the fevered dreams of those who longed for a time when gods walked among mortals, when the world was ruled by powers beyond our comprehension? As you consider this, a chill runs down your spine. There's something deeply unsettling about the idea of this god's return. The Xipe Totec, the god of rebirth, is not a benevolent deity. His power isn't about gentle salvation or enlightenment. It is about transformation, a violent, all-consuming transformation that strips away the very essence of what we are, only to forge something new from the wreckage. To invoke this god is to invite chaos, to open the door to a raw, primal force, to embrace the endless cycle of destruction and renewal. But why would anyone want this? Why wish for the return of such a terrifying god? Perhaps it is the desperation of our times that calls for him. Perhaps in the face of a crumbling world, some believe the only way forward is through absolute destruction. They are tired of the slow decay, tired of the mundane suffering of mortal existence. Such times, the Flayed God promises something more, something beyond the limits of the human spirit. His promise is not of peace, but of radical change. His power is not of salvation, but of transcendence, and it's a power that many are willing to risk everything for. As the prophecy lingers in your mind, you can almost feel the pull of the god's power. Could it be true? Could the return of Xipe Totec bring about a new age, a transformation unlike anything the world has ever known? The questions swirl around you like smoke. We don't have the answers. The whispers are growing louder now, more insistent, as if the god himself is trying to speak through them. Xipe Totec is not gone. He is not forgotten. He is merely waiting, watching, preparing for the moment when the world will need him most. And when that moment comes, will you be ready? Will any of us be ready? The prophecy is clear, but its implications are terrifying. For the return of the god is not a return to something good or pure. It is a return to something far older, far darker, a power that has never truly left, but has only been hidden, waiting. Thank you for journeying into this mystery with me. If you enjoy exploring the forgotten corners of mythology and prophecy, please like this video and subscribe for more. See you in the next one. In our fragmented world, ancient gods have become the stuff of legends. Their temples crumbling, their rituals reduced to footnotes in dusty books. New beliefs, new gods have risen. Yet, in the quiet corners of our modern age, the shadows of the old ones linger. The whispers of Xipe Totec, the Flayed God, are not silent. They echo for those who listen. Disillusioned by the sterile emptiness of contemporary life, some people are turning back. They aren't looking for comfort. They're looking for meaning, for something real and tangible. Scholars pore over forgotten texts, while hidden practitioners revive rites that history tried to erase. They are the seekers, scattered fragments of a forgotten time, who believe the power of the old gods isn't gnits just waiting. Xipe Totec is the god of spring, agriculture, and rebirth. But his path to renewal is not gentle. It is one of profound, often violent transformation. Its rituals involve the shedding of skin, a powerful metaphor for casting off the old to make way for the new. The ancient priests would wear the flayed skins of sacrifices, embodying the god's power to bring forth new life from decay. It was a cycle of death and rebirth, gruesome but essential. Today, this pursuit takes on a darker, more desperate edge. In the most fringe corners of society, these ancient rites are being twisted. The core idea remains: rebirth through destruction. The shedding of the old self to embrace something new, no matter the cost. These modern cults and secret societies are drawn to the symbolic power of Xipe Totec's ritual. They may not perform it literally, but they are obsessed with the idea of wearing the god's skin, shedding their own identities to touch a higher state of consciousness. They see it as a form of spiritual liberation, a way to break free from the mundane. But there's a terrible paradox at play. The more they try to embody the flayed god, the more they risk being consumed by him. Xipe Totec doesn't offer a gentle spring. He demands everything: your body, your mind, your soul. The very act of seeking freedom through him becomes a new kind of enslavement, trapping them in an endless cycle of decay and rebirth. They don't become gods, they become vessels. And yet there's a seductive allure to it all, isn't there? In a world that feels broken and hollow, the promise of total transformation, is becoming something greater, is a powerful draw. It's a dark and dangerous hope, but for some, it's the only hope they have. As we stand at this crossroads of past and present, a question hangs in the air. Will this ancient power surge back into the world, or will it remain a whisper on the fringes? One thing is certain: Xipe Totec is not gone. He waits in the shadows, in the forgotten places, in the hearts of those who dare to seek him. The cycle of rebirth is unbreakable. It's only a matter of time before someone, somewhere, answers his call once more. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the shadows. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the forgotten corners of history and myth. See you next time. There are places in this world where the past doesn't just linger, it persists, hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. The Temple of Xipe Totec is one such place. You won't find it on any map or in any history book. Its location is a secret, known only to a select few who still hold the keys to ancient knowledge. Those who seek the god's power not just in ritual, but in its raw physical form. And though the world believes it has forgotten, the temple remains, buried under layers of earth and time, a silent witness to a god's enduring influence. Legend tells of a chamber within this temple, a hidden chamber that no one has laid eyes on for centuries. It's said to be the very heart of the god's power, a place where the essence of Xipe Totec resides, waiting to be unlocked. Here, among the crumbling ruins, are relics of the god's true nature, artifacts said to hold the power to transcend the mortal realm, to break free from the endless cycle of life and death. The air here is thick, heavy with the sense of something ancient, powerful, and dangerous. Those who enter are often lost, not to death, but to transformation. Because in the chamber of Xipe Totec, you don't just find knowledge, you find something far more profound. The chamber is said to be hidden, its entrance guarded not by simple physical barriers, but by the very essence of the god himself. To find it, one must be prepared, for this god's power does not grant entry without a cost. Some say that those who try to enter the chamber without the proper reverence will find themselves flayed, their minds and bodies torn apart by the very power they seek. The chamber's guardian, they whisper, is Xipe Totec himself, his presence felt in every stone, every shadow. Those who approach without respect are consumed, caught in the eternal cycle of the god's rebirth. But for those who truly understand, for those who seek not just the power of the god but his essence, the reward is beyond imagination. To enter the chamber of Xipe Totec is to step into the god's own domain, to walk the path of transformation in its purest form. The artifacts within are rumored to contain fragments of the god's own power, pieces of the divine that can be wielded by those brave enough to take them. These relics are said to be imbued with the power of death and rebirth, the very forces that govern the god's existence. They are tools of ultimate transformation, capable of changing the very nature of reality itself. And yet, even as you contemplate the allure of this chamber, you can't help but feel a deep sense of unease. The god of rebirth is not one who offers his power freely. His gifts come with a price, and it's a price that many cannot pay. The relics within the chamber aren't just objects, they are vessels of the god's power, and to wield them is to risk becoming part of the god's eternal cycle. To take the power of Xipe Totec is to become one with it, to surrender yourself to the madness of rebirth, to embrace the endless cycle of death and transformation. The more you think about it, the more you realize that the hidden chamber of Xipe Totec is not just a place, it is a metaphor. It is the very essence of the god's power, a power that is hidden, buried, waiting for those who dare to seek it. But the cost is high. The price of entry is not just physical, it is spiritual, mental, and emotional. To seek the god's power is to risk everything. Those who enter the chamber are not just searching for knowledge. They are searching for transformation, for the chance to become something more, something beyond human. But in the end, transformation is a double-edged sword. The very act of seeking the god's power could leave one trapped forever, lost in the endless cycle of renewal, unable to escape. It is said that only the most devoted, the most willing to surrender, can withstand the power of Xipe Totec. For the rest, the chamber becomes a tomb, a final resting place for those who sought to transcend, but were consumed by the very force they sought to control. You stand on the edge of this knowledge, contemplating the path ahead. The temple is there, waiting, its entrance hidden, its secrets buried beneath centuries of dust. The chamber of Xipe Totec remains, and its power calls to you, urging you to step into its embrace. But you know that to seek this power is to surrender to the god's will, to become part of the cycle that he governs. The temptation is great, but so too is the cost. Would you dare to seek the chamber of Xipe Totec? To risk everything for the chance to wield his power? Or would you turn away, leaving the god and his secrets to fade into obscurity once more? The choice is yours, but remember this. Once you step into the god's realm, there is no turning back. The chamber awaits, as it always has, and as it always will. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you're fascinated by the hidden corners of history and myth, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more adventures. Until next time, stay curious. Time is a relentless force, grinding even the divine into dust. The great gods, once worshipped and feared, are now just whispers in the wind, their names fading into legend, their power a shadow of what it once was. Xipe Totec, the Flayed Lord, once central to Aztec life, is no exception. The age of gods, it seems, has passed. Our world today is a universe away from the one that revered the god of rebirth. The days of human sacrifice and sacred flaying rituals are gone, replaced by ... what exactly? A spiritual void? The gods who were once the very fabric of daily life are now just stories in dusty textbooks, subjects of academic debate. And yet, you can feel it, can't you? A sense that something vital has been lost. The world is filled with noise, new ideas, new beliefs, new idols, but beneath it all, the silence of the old gods is deafening. It's a subtle reminder that something irreplaceable has slipped through our fingers. Xipe Totec was a god of transformation, of destruction leading to renewal. But his worship was a double-edged sword. He demanded the ultimate sacrifice. He consumed those who sought his favor. As humanity prioritized progress and survival, his rituals were deemed too brutal, too demanding. The god of rebirth, who lived in the raw cycle of life and death, couldn't provide the quick, comfortable answers our modern world craves. Shedding one's skin is painful, too real for a world that prefers illusion over truth. But there are still whispers. There are those who remember, who understand that fading from sight doesn't mean they're gone forever. Xipe Totec may no longer have grand temples, but his essence, the very cycle of destruction and renewal, is everywhere. His presence isn't on blood-soaked altars anymore, but in the quiet corners of the world, in the lives of those still searching for meaning in the chaos. Perhaps the gods never truly fade. Maybe they just change their form, retreating into the shadows of our subconscious, waiting for those who will seek them out. In the silence of our modern age, there's a deep, primal yearning for something more. To call forth a god like Xipe Totec is to invite the very forces that shape the universe: death, destruction, and ultimately rebirth. There's a profound sadness in this fading. The gods were once so real. They demanded reverence, but they also offered meaning, a sense of one's place in the vast cosmos. Now, that certainty is gone. The gods no longer provide the answers. They have become the questions we grapple with. No amount of technological progress can fill the void left by a lost sense of purpose, of being part of something greater than yourself. So, the question is, are the gods truly gone? Or have they simply retreated into the depths of the human psyche, waiting for the right moment to rise again? And if they do, will we be ready? A god's return is never simple. The old gods are not suited for the world we've built. They come with demands, with sacrifices, with the crushing weight of ancient power. Xipe Totec's rebirth, when it comes, will not be a gentle spring. It will be a violent return to the cycle destruction, suffering, and in the end, renewal. But who will answer the call? Who among us is willing to shed their skin and step into the gods' eternal dance once more? Thank you for watching. If this journey into the shadows of history intrigued you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of forgotten myths and lingering powers. Have you ever felt like something ancient is missing from our world? A kind of power, a kind of magic we've forgotten how to see. The gods of old might not walk among us anymore. Their temples turned to ruins, but that doesn't mean their power is gone. Hidden, exiled, waiting. Take Xipe Totec, the Aztec god of spring, agriculture, and rebirth. His rituals are no longer shouted in the streets of Tenochtitlan. His name is a whisper from a bygone era. But his power, the raw, untamed force of transformation, hasn't vanished. It's buried just beneath the surface of our modern world, locked away by time and our own disbelief. This exile isn't an ending, it's a change of form. The god's power has retreated from the grand stage into the shadows. It no longer commands entire civilizations, but it still calls to a few. Those who feel the world isn't quite right, who sense a deeper reality lurking behind the veil of the everyday. These modern seekers, often on the fringes of society, find themselves drawn to forgotten rites and whispered beliefs. They might not even know the name Xipe Totec, but they are reenacting his ancient ceremonies. They seek to peel away the layers of their own lives, to shed their old selves, and be reborn, just as the god promised. But this isn't a gentle path. Xipe Totec's power isn't about soft enlightenment. It's brutal, primal, and all-consuming. Its gift of rebirth is a double-edged sword. To seek it is to risk everything. Those who tap into this force can find themselves trapped in an eternal cycle of destruction and renewal, forever bound to the very power they sought to control. It's a dangerous game, invoking a god of such intensity. So why do they do it? Why risk being consumed? Perhaps it's because our modern world, for all its comforts, can feel hollow. We yearn for real transformation, for something more profound than the next distraction. Invoking this ancient power is a desperate attempt to escape the ordinary, to embrace true, radical change, whatever the cost. The exile of Xipe Totec's power says a lot about us too. We live in a time of constant upheaval, yet we're terrified of the very forces of destruction and renewal that could help us evolve. We're afraid of what it means to be truly remade, to shed the skin of our past and step into an unknown future. It's easier to pretend these primal forces don't exist, to keep the old gods safely locked away in history books. But the divine doesn't just disappear because we stop believing. It waits. In the silence of exile, a power like Xipe Totec's only grows stronger, simmering beneath layers of time and memory. It's always there, ready to re-emerge when we finally need it most. And maybe in a way we are in exile too. Exiled from something ancient within ourselves, from the raw, powerful truths about life, death, and rebirth that our ancestors understood. We've buried our own need for transformation under a mountain of convenience. But that need, that deep human yearning, never truly goes away. It's only a matter of time before it rises again. In this long exile, the god waits. And maybe a part of you is waiting too. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the shadows. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Till next time, stay curious. Have you ever felt the need for a fresh start? Shed your old skin and begin anew? We often see rebirth as a beautiful, peaceful process. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly, a phoenix rising from the ashes. But what if it wasn't? What if rebirth was violent, chaotic, and maddening? Let us delve into the chilling lore of an ancient Aztec god who embodies this terrifying truth. Xipe Totec, the Flayed Lord. The story of Xipe Totec isn't one of gentle renewal. It's a tale of consuming madness. His power lies in the cycle of death and rebirth, but it's a cycle that never truly ends. Each transformation isn't a release, but a descent into something darker. Think about it. The very act of flaying, tearing away the old skin, isn't a clean slate. It's a violent upheaval. Xipe Totec doesn't just offer renewal, he demands destruction. Those who seek his power, hoping to become vessels of divine energy, find a cruel irony. They don't wear the god's flayed skin to ascend. They wear it to be consumed. They become slaves to the god's endless, ravenous hunger. The promise of a new beginning reveals itself as a labyrinth of insanity where each step pulls you deeper into the god's grasp. The soul is chained, dragged through an eternal, grinding cycle of death and transformation. The followers of Xipe Totec aren't reborn into something greater. They are devoured by the process. Their minds fracture, their identities dissolve in the frenzy of constant, brutal change. They give more and more of themselves until nothing is left but the god's will. This is the true face of Xipe Totec's power, not enlightenment, but total, unrelenting chaos. He doesn't make you more than human. He makes you less. You cease to be a person and become just a vessel, an empty shell for his endless cycle. As we explore this, do you feel a certain unease? A sense that this cycle isn't just some ancient myth? The deeper you go, the more your own sense of clarity might waver. The god's power is seductive. In a world filled with uncertainty and conflict, the promise of shedding your old self and becoming something new can feel like an escape. It whispers of transcendence, but it only delivers madness. To seek Xipe Totec's power is to risk everything, to gamble your very identity for something you can never control. Can anyone truly enter his realm and return unchanged? Or do they simply become another note in his symphony of madness, lost in a spiral of destruction and rebirth that never ever ceases? His transformation erases all boundaries, breaking down everything that makes you ... you. And yet, there's a pull, isn't there? A temptation. Perhaps this is why the myth of Xipe Totec endures, haunting the edges of our consciousness. The allure of complete transformation, of becoming something divine, is powerful. But to wear the god's skin is to accept the insanity that comes with it. You now stand at the edge of this truth, understanding the full, terrifying scope of his power. The madness of rebirth isn't something to be feared or avoided. Once you step into the god's realm, you can't go back. The transformation is absolute, and as you stand here, caught between the temptation and the terrible knowledge, you might realize something chilling. The madness of Xipe Totec isn't just a part of his myth, it's a part of you now. His call has always been there, deep in the human soul, waiting. And whether you know it or not, your journey has already begun. If this exploration into the darker side of mythology intrigued you, do not forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. Thank you for watching. The air grows still. The whispers, which once roared like a storm, are now softer, almost imperceptible. But you can still hear them, can't you? It's as if the very fabric of the world is trying to speak directly to you. Xipe Totec, the Flayed Lord, the god of rebirth and madness, has not gone silent. No. His presence lingers like a shadow at the edge of your vision, waiting for those who are attuned enough, those who have wandered far enough into the dark to hear his final, whispered truth. This isn't a truth for the faint of heart, or for those who haven't felt the ground shift beneath their feet. This is for you who sought the god's power and now find yourself teetering on the very edge of transformation. The final whisper of Xipe Totec isn't a thunderous command or a grand proclamation. It's a subtle thing, a murmur that brushes against your consciousness like the fleeting memory of a dream. You hear it, but only because you're willing to listen. It doesn't come in words, not at first. It comes as a feeling, the feeling of being unmoored, untethered from the safety of the person you used to be. It's the sensation of shedding an old skin, an old identity, and being forced to step into something unfamiliar, something that will never truly be yours. Then the words form. The rebirth is never complete. It isn't a warning, nor is it a promise. It's a statement of undeniable fact. The journey that began with Xipe Totec is never over. Its power isn't a gift to be unwrapped and kept. It's a force, a relentless tide that sweeps you along and never ever lets you go. There is no end to this. There is only the cycle, a perpetual grinding motion of destruction and creation that continues, whether you are aware of it or not. The whisper echoes. The next whisper is older still, but only for those who truly listen. The words linger, fading into the silent corners of your mind, yet they remain gnawing at the edges of your thoughts, unraveling your sense of reality. You feel the god's presence again, not as a distant myth, but as a consuming force within you, twisting and reshaping your very perception. He is not a figure from history. He is a force that is always present, always waiting. Xipe Totec offers no easy answers. He provides no salvation. He offers only the cycle, the eternal, turning wheel that strips away everything you know, everything that is comfortable, and leaves only the raw, exposed essence of your being. As the whisper finally fades into silence, you begin to understand. This journey, this descent into the myth of Xipe Totec, it was never about uncovering the god's secrets. It was about understanding the nature of transformation itself. Its power is not about escaping the mortal realm, it's about embracing it in all its terror and all its beauty. The true lesson is that rebirth is not a peaceful awakening. It is violent, it is consuming, and it is unending. To truly embrace it is to lose yourself in the process, to be caught in a whirlwind of death and renewal forever. And yet, as you confront this dark truth, you feel a strange sense of understanding, a longing even. Xipe Totec offers no return to the past, no comfort. He offers something far more profound, the chance to step into the unknown, to leave behind the self you were, and to enter a cycle where nothing is ever the same, but nothing is ever truly gone. It's a terrifying prospect, but it's the only one that promises true change. You stand on the precipice now, the god's final whisper ringing in your ears, inviting you to take that final step. To do so is to accept that nothing can ever return to what it was. To embrace Xipe Totec is to embrace the inevitable destruction of all things, including yourself, and to surrender to his will. The journey is not over. Not for you. Not for anyone who dares to listen. The god is always there, always waiting. Your candle hasn't gone out. Then you're probably ready for the next god. Thank you for walking with me into the shadows. If you appreciate these journeys into the heart of myth, consider subscribing and joining our community. We have many more whispers to uncover. You thought the path you walked would lead to an answer, a neat conclusion about the myth of Xipe Totec, the god of rebirth. But there is no tidy resolution here. The journey hasn't brought clarity. It has unraveled you, peeling back layers of certainty and leaving you with more questions than you started with. Perhaps this is the true nature of Xipe Totec, a god who offers no definitive truth, but instead demands surrender. To seek transformation is to lose yourself in the endless cycle of destruction and rebirth. To abandon the comfort of finality and embrace the terror of infinite change. Your quest to uncover the hidden god has only led you into deeper obscurity. Here's the unsettling truth. Transformation isn't about reaching a destination. It's about surrendering to the currents that sweep you away and remold you into something unrecognizable. You stand now at the edge of something vast and unknowable. A realm where the boundaries between life and death, self and other, blur beyond recognition. The god's power pulses in the air, a heavy reminder that the cycle of shedding and becoming is always in motion, always waiting. Your journey hasn't brought you to the end of this cycle. It has merely pulled you into it. You're not at the beginning, nor are you at the end. You're caught in the in-between, the liminal space where the god's power still reverberates. Xipe Totec doesn't offer peace. He offers only the relentless rhythm of change, the constant shedding of skin, the endless dance between destruction and renewal. The whispers of the god still echo, not in words, but in the sensation of being both consumed and liberated at once. The more you sought answers, the more you realized there was no final truth to be had. The god's wisdom isn't something that can be contained. It is a force that flows through everything, forever shifting, forever evolving. And so, the journey continues, just as Xipe Totec himself continues, in the endless cycle of becoming and unbecoming. You're no longer the person you were when you began this quest, but you have not yet arrived at whatever you are becoming. The God's power lingers in you now, shaping you in ways you can't fully comprehend, urging you to shed your skin and step into the unknown. Perhaps this is the true essence of his power, not the promise of an ending, but the acceptance that you will never be the same, that you are always in flux, always on the edge of becoming. This transformation does not end with one God, one cycle, one life. It is endless. And in that endlessness, there is both terror and freedom. As this chapter concludes, you realize you have only begun to understand the true nature of the God's gift. There is no final answer. There is only the call to continue, to shed the old skin, and to step into whatever comes next. The God's power is not a destination, it is a journey, always unfolding, always waiting for those ready to answer its call. There are more gods. There are always more gods. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. If these journeys into myth and meaning resonate with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more. Till next time. You stand in stillness, but your soul is anything but quiet. The whispers of the god, Xipe Totec, still echo within you, a constant low hum beneath the surface of your thoughts. You might think the journey is over, that you found what you were looking for, but a god's power is never truly given up, never fully grasped. Xipe Totec's influence, his very essence, has woven itself into the fabric of your being. It's changed how you see everything, what it means to live, to die, and to be reborn. You started this quest seeking truth, didn't you? Hunting for the last fragments of a forgotten myth. But the reality is, you were always searching for something more profound. Something ancient. Something that defies simple understanding. The path Xipe Totec laid out for you isn't one of clear answers or neat conclusions. There are no final, comforting revelations waiting at the end. What you've discovered isn't the god's secrets, but his power, his raw, untamed power to shape, to tear down, and to build anew. And now, that power resides in you. It pulses just beneath your skin, a second heartbeat, a constant reminder that transformation isn't a single event, it's a continuous state of being. To walk this path is to accept that you will always be in motion, forever in the process of becoming something else. Never quite finished, never truly whole. The God of Rebirth doesn't offer peace, he doesn't promise stability. He offers the endless possibility of change, but it comes with a steep price. The price is your identity, your comfortable sense of self, your illusion of permanence. Yet in that very surrender, in that loss, there is an exhilarating freedom. There's a profound liberation in allowing yourself to be undone, in shedding your old self like flayed skin to become something new, something wonderfully and terrifyingly unfamiliar. The world you're returning to isn't the same one you left behind. It can't be. The knowledge of Xipe Totec, the visceral understanding of his power, has irrevocably altered you. You can walk through the busy streets of the modern world, surrounded by glass and steel, but beneath it all, you can feel at the thrum of something ancient, something eternal, waiting to be acknowledged. The great cycles of creation and destruction continue, and you are no longer just a spectator watching from the sidelines. You are an active part of them now. The God's power flows through you, through everything, seeping through the cracks in time and space, back to an age where gods once walked the earth. And in the quietest moments, they still make their presence known. As Xipe Totec himself whispered, there are more gods, more cycles, more primal forces waiting to be understood, waiting for those who are ready to listen. They haven't vanished, they're merely hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the few who will seek them out, who will answer their silent call. And so, you too are waiting for the next whisper on the wind, the next sign, the next god. You have stepped into the cycle, and there's no turning back. The path that started with Xipe Totec is only the first step on a journey that has no end. The gods are always there, always waiting for those who dare to seek them. If your candle hasn't gone out, then you're probably ready for the next god. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. If these stories resonate with you, consider subscribing and joining our community. We have many more whispers to follow. Till next time, stay curious. In the stillness of night, you hear just a whisper at first. It travels like a breeze through the forgotten corners of the earth. The sound of something old, something lost, but never truly gone. It calls your name, or perhaps not. Can't be sure. It's somewhere in the back of your mind. You know that it is a summons. It's a voice from an age long past, a time when the world was ruled by gods you have never known, gods you've never dared to ask about, gods whose names should have never slipped from memory. The god's name hovers on the edges of your thoughts. Xipe Totec. Xipe Totec. The name reverberates like an echo from the depths, lingering just out of reach, like a dream you can almost remember, but never fully grasp. It is a name born of blood, of ancient rituals, of sacrifice and rebirth. You feel the air grow heavy as it settles upon your senses, thick with the promise of forgotten knowledge. The Flayed God, some call him, a deity bound to the very cycle of life and death, whose domain is neither holy life nor holy death, but the thin, fragile line between them. A God who does not ask for worship, but for surrender to the endless cycle of transformation. But who was Xipe Totec, really? The history is fractured, scattered like dust in the wind. The Aztecs, mighty and complex, claimed him as their own, their god of agriculture, renewal, spring, and of sacrifice. They saw in him the painful but necessary process of a corn kernel shedding its outer husk to germinate, or a snake shedding its skin to grow. In the rituals dedicated to Xipe Totec, life would be given, not to end, but to begin again. His power was said to lie not in the promise of eternal life, but in the cyclical nature of existence, death as the necessary gateway to new beginnings. It was not a death without meaning, but a death that led to rebirth. As you listened to the whisper, you couldn't help but wonder about this God who ruled over such a paradox, the God who reveled in the transformation of flesh, whose followers donned the flayed skins of sacrificial victims who saw the destruction of one life as essential to the creation of something greater. Was this a God of brutal necessity, a symbol of nature's harsh truths, or something far more terrifying? Xipe Totec, the name that carries so much weight, yet it is only half of what you must understand. The other half, the darker half, is what lies beyond this name, what was lost, forgotten, and erased in the annals of time. The truth, as it so often does, slips between your fingers, but it continues to call, drawing you closer. You hear it again, clearer now, a voice not loud but insistent, vibrating through the space around you. It beckons you to delve deeper, to peer into the shadows of the past, to explore the divine rituals that are now nothing more than whispered legends. The idea of Xipe Totec draws you in, and you know instinctively that the journey ahead will lead to a place where gods are not merely worshipped, they are transformed, flayed, and reborn. The whispers cease for a moment, leaving only a lingering presence. This is no ordinary myth. There is something darker here, something that resists the passage of time. The god is not forgotten, not gone, but waiting. It's always waiting. And as the silence falls upon you, one final whisper rings out. It is not an invitation, nor a question. It is a command. Now, let's get started with today's story. In certain corners of the world, in places even the ancients forgot, the line between life and death isn't just thin. It's non-existent. You're standing on the threshold of one such place now. We're in the land of the Tlaxcala, a resilient people nestled between the mighty Aztec Empire and the dense jungles beyond. Here the old gods were worshipped in ways that modern minds can barely comprehend. The rituals performed weren't the grand public spectacles of Tenochtitlan's temples. No, they were something far more personal, more intimate, and arguably more terrifying. At the heart of this forgotten land stood a temple to Xipe Totec, our Lord the Flayed One, a silent witness to both the sacred and the horrifying. The air would have been thick with the sense of copal incense and fresh blood, offerings to a god who would forever change those who dared to enter his domain. The people of Tlaxcala would gather their hearts a chaotic mix of devotion and primal fear, because they weren't offering simple trinkets or animals. They were offering themselves. The central ritual of Xipe Totec was known as Tlaxopialistli, the flaying of men. It was an act so profound, so visceral, that it involved the complete stripping away of a person's skin. But this wasn't punishment or a simple sacrifice. For them, it was a sacred transformation. The flayed skin wasn't discarded. It was worn by a priest or another devotee as a second skin. a golden yellow garment symbolizing renewal, agriculture, and the shedding of the old to make way for the new, much like a maize seed shedding its husk to sprout. As grotesque as it sounds, the ritual was believed to mirror the god's own cycle of suffering and rebirth, creating a direct link between the earthly and the divine. To be chosen for this was considered a great honor. For the people of Tlaxcala, being flayed was a form of rebirth. It was a spiritual act connecting the individual directly to Xipe Totec's essence. The pain would have been unimaginable, but the promise of divine favor, spiritual transcendence, was believed to be far greater. The one who wore this second skin was said to walk in the footsteps of the god himself. There's an unsettling beauty in this ritual, isn't there? The idea that to become closer to the divine, one must shed their earthly form, their old self, and literally wear the symbol of their god's power. The flesh wasn't just removed, it was transmuted. The skin became a garment of godly grace, imbued with the very essence of Xipe Totec. It was an act of unification with the divine. But a darker question lingers within this sacred act. Xipe Totec represented the eternal cycle of destruction and renewal, a cycle from which nothing can escape. So, while his followers believed they were achieving spiritual transcendence, were they actually being trapped in his divine loop? To wear the skin of the god was to embrace his eternal cycle, to become part of his endless transformation. Caught in the same dance of life, death, and rebirth? Was this ritual truly an act of spiritual ascension? Or was it a trap, a form of spiritual entrapment binding the soul to the god's will forever? As we stand at the edge of this forgotten world, you can't help but wonder, is this divine favor or something far more sinister? A curse wrapped in the guise of holiness? The whispers of the ritual linger. The questions are as deep as these ancient temples and as elusive as the god himself. But the rite remains, a haunting melody woven into the fabric of history, a sacred act that reveals both the divine, and the damned. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, get that notification bell for more explorations into the world's forgotten corners. See you next time. The air grows thick around you, heavy with the dust of forgotten chambers. Listen closely. Can you hear it? The whispers of those who dared to wear the flayed skin of Xipe Totec, our Lord, the Flayed One. Imagine the texture of it, the raw, cooling skin of another clinging to your own. A second skin, a gruesome transformation, not just of the body, but of the very spirit. To wear the skin was to step into the god's essence, to shed your mortal coil and become something both sacred and grotesque. It was an act of rebirth, a symbol of the earth shedding its old dead covering to make way for new life. But as you linger in this thought, a chilling understanding emerges. It was never truly the wearer who held the power, it was the skin itself. When a person was chosen for sacrifice, their skin was meticulously removed, not just as a symbol, but as a divine offering. That flesh peeled away from the body still held the imprint of its previous life, the echo of its soul. That asterisk was the power. It wasn't the priest wearing the skin, but the soul trapped within it that the god desired. The act of wearing this skin wasn't merely symbolic. It was an act of becoming a vessel. Those who donned the flayed skins were thought to inherit a fragment of Xipe Totec's power. Now, this wasn't a clean divine power, as you might imagine. It was corrupted, twisted, tied to the very cycle of suffering and rebirth that defined the god. To wear the skin was to be bound to his eternal loop, where life and death chase each other in an endless, horrifying dance. In this loop, there was no true escape, only the illusion of freedom, the false promise of transcendence. The god's power flowed through the skin, yes, but it demanded a terrible price. You could never escape it. The skin would not let you. So, what was this power? Kings, priests, and elite warriors adorned themselves with the god's skin. Believing it gave them fearlessness in battle, divine wisdom, and favor in the eyes of the people. But these gifts were fleeting. Each time the skin was worn, each time it was passed to another, the connection to the divine grew weaker, more distorted. What began as a holy symbol of rebirth became a tether to something much darker. A path to transformation became a prison. Those who wore the skin felt its weight, not just physically, but spiritually. It was alive with an energy that whispered in their ears, urging them to embrace their power, to do whatever was necessary to maintain their divine status. The more they wore it, the more they were consumed. It's said that in time, they began to lose their own identity. The gods will replace their own. They were no longer the wearer, but a mere extension of the gods' power, trapped in a cycle they could not break. Perhaps the truth of Xipe Totec is not as a god of renewal, but something far more insidious, a god who consumes those who seek his power, is making them part of his endless, unbreakable cycle. The skin that once symbolized rebirth became a constant, gruesome reminder of the price of immortality. As you ponder this, you realize the full extent of the goddess' power is not in his ability to give life, but in his ability to take it away, to strip the soul and leave only a hollow shell. To wear the skin was to forfeit your humanity for the god's fleeting grace. In that exchange, there was no return, no true resurrection. The skin was a vessel, yes, but it was also a curse. It's in seeking to wear the skin of the god, you weren't becoming one with him. You were becoming his prisoner. The power it gave was not freedom. It was the power to be forever bound. The skin was not a gift, it was a sentence. And still, the whispers grow louder. They speak not only of Xipe Totec, but of the very nature of power itself. What compels us to seek the power of gods, even when it costs our very soul? As the skin of Xipe Totec calls to you from across the centuries, you can almost feel its weight on your own shoulders, heavy, pressing, and inescapable. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the shadows of history. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories that lie hidden in the past. See you next time.